Welcome back. Previously, we looked at the death of Abraham, the end of his long and wonderful life. And then we had Isaac, his son, who had some kids of his own, Jacob and Esau. And they were fighting each other and seemed to be in quite a bit of conflict. At the end of the chapter, we saw the selling of the birthright from the elder to the younger, which is unprecedented. Moving forward, we are now moving into 26. Genesis 26:1. And there was a famine in the land, other than the former famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went to Gerar, to Abimelech, the king of the Philistines. As we recall previously, there was a big famine when Abraham first got to the land, and he had to go and dwell in Egypt for a time as a result. So this is a famine that is different than that one. And we got Isaac here. He's going to go do some negotiating with Abimelech, king of the Philistines. And we have an intervention. Genesis 26:2. And the Lord appeared to him and said, "Do not go down to Egypt. Live in the land which I tell you." So here we go. We have a conversation with the Lord. The first thing he says is, do not go down to Egypt. Do not go to that land. The land of Egypt, that's not a good place to hang out. So God's going to have to do some providing. And what we have here is, live in the land, I will tell you. So God's going to provide an alternative to going down to Egypt. Genesis 26:3. Dwell temporarily in this land, and I will be with you, and will favor you with blessings. For to you and your descendants I will give all these land, and I will perform the oath which I have sworn to Abraham your father. God is letting Isaac know that he is going to look after everything, and that he had a deal or an oath with his father, and he wants to carry that on with him, to bless and look after him and his descendants. A lot of effort and many years it took to get them into the land that they are in now. It would be a waste to throw all that away. This gets reiterated further in the next line. Genesis 6:24. And I will make your descendants to multiply as the stars of the heavens, and will give to your posterity all the lands, kingdoms, and by your offspring shall all nations of the earth be blessed, or by him blessed themselves. 26:5. For Abraham listened to and obeyed my voice, and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. I think Isaac, he spent a lot of time with his dad, probably over the years, and his dad probably explained a lot of the blessings and his communications that he had with God. So I think Isaac would have known some of this, but to have it spelled out by God directly definitely reinforced the idea that, God was going to bless him and his descendants and make them multiply. So this was probably a wonderful thing to hear, especially in a time of famine, a time when everything is hard, everything is starting to suck. Not knowing where you're going to get your next meal, not knowing if you're going to have shelter, not knowing what's going to happen. Just that time of uncertainty of not knowing. To have God spell out that he's going to look after him is probably just the most wonderful thing imaginable. So after this conversation, what is Isaac going to do? Genesis 26:6. So Isaac stayed in Gerar. I do wonder if it was like they were packing up, they were getting ready. It's like, well, I guess we're going to have to go back to Egypt. And then he got this communication from God, and it's like, well, maybe we'll just stay here for a while. So he'll look after things. Genesis 26:7. And the men of the place asked him about his wife, and he said, she is my sister. For he was afraid to say, she is my wife, thinking, lest the men of this place should kill me for Rebekah, because she is attractive and beautiful to look upon. Oh man, like father like son, here we go, repeating the same silliness. I do wonder if maybe he learned this one from Abraham, And Abraham never really figured out that that wasn't really the right thing to do, or if Isaac kind of came to the same conclusion. I don't know. It doesn't really matter, but in his case, this is worse than Abraham, because at least in Abraham's case, she was his half sister, whereas in this case, they are much more distant as relatives, so that's a little bit of a stretch to call it the sister. Seems like a surefire way to fall into a harem, but maybe not this time. Genesis 26:8. When he had been there a long time, Abimelech, the king of the Philistines, looked out the window and saw Esau caressing Rebekah, his wife. I'm sure this was quite the sight to behold, and I'm sure he felt a bit betrayed at seeing this. This man and this woman. This man claimed that this woman was his sister, and he's doing naughty things with her. Genesis 26:9. And Abimelech called Isaac and said, "See here, she is certainly your wife. How did you dare you say to me that she is my sister?" And Isaac said to him, "Because I thought, lest I die on account of her." So I think there's probably more than one Abimelech. Because this story, something similar happened with Sarah and Abraham when they were kind of migrating around. There was an Abimelech then. So whether Abimelech's like a title or a name or a generational name, I don't know. But it was like the exact same story, except for Sarah was taken into the harem, and then a plague of no one was able to give birth, and reproduction kind of stopped in the nation. So that was kind of crazy. But in this instance, being caught in the act, caught in the lie, and coming forth to ask what's going on is a much different outcome than that which happened with Abraham and Sarah. And I mean, he's got every right to be upset, because maybe he knows of what happened previously. He knows how God told him, "You got another man's wife in your house, and you got to send her back or you're going to die." I would think that story would have probably been passed down, if these are the same Abimelechs related in any way, shape, or form. I would kind of wonder if it'd be like a grandson or something, because Abraham lived to a obscenely long age, and Isaac, he's no young buck here, so I don't think it is the same one, unless Abimelech lived an absurdly long amount of time, in which case, if he's a really old man, he's not going to be that into the young women, maybe. So I would think it would be like a grandson or something to generationally be correct, but that's just my hypothesis. I could be completely wrong on that. So seeing this scenario play out, if he has foreknowledge of what happened last time, he has every reason to be excited and worked up about this. Dare say to me, she is my sister. Genesis 26:10. And Abimelech said, "What is this you have done to us? One of the men might easily have lain with your wife, and you would have brought guilt and sin upon us." I think he is correct in this assertion that with what happened previously with Sarah, if he would have heard that story or known that story, even if he didn't know that story, just the idea of laying with another man's wife, especially in that culture and in that time, when there was higher moral standards than today, you just wouldn't do that. That would just not be good. It would create strife, animosity, and it could lead to armed conflict and fighting it out, so to speak, as well as maybe a divine intervention. So Genesis 26:11. Then Abimelech charged all of his people, "He who touches this man or his wife shall surely be put to death." Here we go. We got an order from the king of this land, the Philistines, that if they touch Isaac or his wife, that they will be put to death. So that should alleviate any worry or any doubt within Isaac that anyone's going to take his wife, or at least make him a little bit easier, the rest a little easier. Genesis 26:13. And the man became great and gained more and more until he became very wealthy and distinguished. 26:14. He owned flocks, herds, and a great supply of servants, and the Philistines envied him. Isaac seems to be doing very well for himself. He seems quite successful. I think God is helping him out here and helping him do well and become very blessed as an individual. Genesis 26:15. Now all the wells which his father's servants had dug in the days of Abraham his father, the Philistines had closed and filled with earth. So they closed all the wells. I don't know why they did that, but I'm sure we'll find out later. Genesis 26:16. And Abimelech said to Isaac, "Go away from us. You are much mightier than we are." So he comes in there. He's dwelling with these guys. He's probably, pretty broke or whatever from the famine. Probably lost a whole lot. And he's hanging out there with these guys and the Philistines, and he becomes more wealthy and richer than they are. And because he was so wealthy and rich, it's like, get out of here. They're kicking him out of the area. Could be elements of jealousy or envy, or maybe the riches were preventing them from getting stuff done just because he just had way too much going on, and they needed the land back so that they could use it. There's a diversity of reasons, I'm sure. Genesis 26:17. So Isaac went away from there and pitched his tent in the valley of Gerar and dwelt there. So he leaves the area. The famine should be over by now. He was probably there for quite a while, so he's moving back to the old land. And he heads to that valley of Gerar. Genesis 26:18. And Isaac dug again the wells of water which had been dug in the days of Abraham his father. For the Philistines had stopped them after the death of Abraham, and he gave them the names by which his father had called them. If we recall, Abraham named all these different wells of water and what have you. So Isaac goes and redigs the well, brings the water back, and gives them the names that his father gave them. I think Abraham gave a lot of those names based on his relationship with God and kind of what was happening at the time. So they're very nice and lovely names that spell out his love for the God and the deliverance that God gave him at different instances of time, or their relationship and how it kind of progressed through his life. Genesis 26:19. Now Isaac's servants dug in the valley and found there a well of living spring water. So it looks like they dug all their wells back, and this one they dug and they got really good water out of it. Genesis 26:20. And the herdsmen of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's herdmen, saying, "This water is ours," and named the well Esek, continuation, because they quarreled with him. 26:21. Then his servants dug another well, and they quarreled over that also. So he named it Sitnah, enmity. Nothing like the process of going through a lot of work to do something and then have someone else claim that it is theirs. And then dusting your boots off, doing it again, and having the same thing happen again. Seems like a ridiculous situation that they just can't get water. It almost seems like dealing with children. It's like, okay, you can have that one. You can have that, do whatever, have your water. We'll just make our own. And then they come for the second one too? Like, what is that? Genesis 26:22. And he moved away from there and dug another well. And for that one they did not quarrel. He named it Rehoboth, room, saying, "For now the Lord has made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in this land." So after the second one, after all that fighting, they just go away. They go to a distance that was far enough away that they were able to dig a well and actually have it provide for them, because they didn't want to quarrel with these other people over every little thing. Because if they're going to bother you over a well, what else are they going to bother you over, right? Genesis 26:23. Now he went up from there to Beersheba. 26:24. And the Lord appeared to him that same night and said, "I am the God of Abraham your father. Fear not, for I am with you and will favor you with blessings and multiply your descendants for the sake of my servant Abraham. It is not something he deserved, it's not something that he earned, it's something that is done because of Abraham, the faithful servant of God. And of course, we got that first line in there, fear not. God has to keep doing that because I'm sure people are just terrified to have an experience that is supernatural, a communication with a being far greater than themselves, one that is beyond perception. And then of course the third aspect of this is going to be the blessing and multiply your descendants. Genesis 26:25, and Isaac built an altar there and called on the name of the Lord and pitched his tent there, and there Isaac's servants were digging a well. When it comes to survival and living and the aspects of life, you can't live very long without water, so it's kind of an important thing to have. And so he's getting the servants to dig there. He's calling out on the name of the Lord, making this altar, just trying to get all situated and get everything kind of squared away, everything kind of figured out, to have a real place of dwelling and to no longer be the vagabond, the traveling salesman. Genesis 26:26. Then Abimelech went to him from Gerar with Azaz, one of his friends, and Phicol, his army commander. So the king, the army commander, and the king's buddy come to visit Isaac and to see what's going on after they kick him out. Genesis 26:27. And Isaac said to them, why have you come to see me, seeing that you hate me and have sent me away from you? I think that's a very valid question on the part of Isaac. He wants to know why they're there. They kicked him out. He's just starts getting settled in, and now they're coming to investigate. Genesis 26:28. They said, we saw the Lord was certainly with you, so we said, let there be now an oath between us, carrying a curse with it to befall the one who breaks it, even between you and us, and let us make a covenant with you. I find it very interesting that they want to make a deal with him now. Why didn't they make a deal with him when he was there in the city? Unless when he left the city or left the area, that things changed to make them want to make a deal with him. For when he was there, they did not realize of the blessings that God was bestowing upon Isaac to the nation around them. But when he left, those blessings were taken with him, and they probably noticed then. They thought he would just leave and stuff would kind of get back to normal, but everything probably kind of collapsed around them the second he left. For God could have been the one propping up the city. So I don't know exactly how that went down, but I think there's elements to that here. For why would they have come all the way out to see him unless something happened, something occurred? Because you don't just kick someone out and then try to track them down unless there's some other reason, something more, something beyond what we're seeing here. Genesis 26:29. That you will do us no harm, inasmuch as we have not touched you and have done to you nothing but good, and have sent you away in peace. You are now in the blessed or favored of the Lord. They know that Isaac is blessed. They can see the blessings on him. They do not ascribe what is going on with Isaac and Isaac's situation and just how things have been for Isaac as anything other than blessings of God. Of course, this could just be, what's the word I'm looking for? Flattery. They're buttering him up to make a negotiation. Maybe this is just pleasantry talk, and they just want to get something from him. They see his wealth and they want it. Genesis 26:30. And he made them a formal dinner, and they ate and drank. So here we go. We have ourselves a little bit of a party, them having a good time. Genesis 26:31. And they rose up early in the morning and took oaths with a curse with one another. And Isaac sent them on their way, and they departed from him in peace. So they accomplished their goal. They got Isaac to agree to make an oath with them. I'm sure we'll see the ramifications of that later. Genesis 26:32. That same day, Isaac's servants came and told him about the well they had dug, saying, "We have found water." I've never dug a well before, and I do know, depending on where you are, it can be a real deep hole you have to dig to get the water. So they're digging there. It takes a while to do it. You just keep digging down, hoping you're going to find water. You don't know if there actually is water under where you're digging. Although if you dig enough, you might find it. But anyway, they were successful. They found water. So this is a very big celebration here, that they were successful in digging a well that they could actually use. Genesis 26:33. And he named the well Sheba. Therefore, the name of the city, Beersheba, well of the oath, to this day. Well, those are some names that are going to show up again later on. It's pretty significant, a pretty significant well, and it looks like this is where they're dwelling and they're building a city, so this is good. Or they settle there and eventually it'll become a city. I guess that would make more sense. Genesis 26:34. Now Esau was 40 years old when he took a wife, Judith, the daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and Basemath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite. Genesis 26:35. And they made life bitter and a grief of mind and spirit for Isaac and Rebekah, their parents-in-law. Well, here we go. Esau took on 2 wives. You're not really supposed to have more than 1 wife, so we're already off to a bad start. The problem with having 2 wives, well, we'll find out. The Bible is probably the best place to see anywhere the problems with having more than 1 wife simultaneously. Polygamy. You could really see it. We'll find out. It's rough. It's brutal. The second aspect of this is that they are both Hittites, descendant of Hittites. So they're of the land that they're in. They didn't go back to the land of Abraham's fathers to get daughters. So they're going to have a lot of the wickedness that's in the land in their behaviors, mannerisms, and social makeup. For they have grown up in a place that is much more ungodly. So he's in for a rough time. And we can see that Isaac is in for a rough time as well, as the father-in-law, and Rebekah as the mother-in-law. That the families are just not going to quite see eye to eye. I mean, that's what happens when you have people from different spiritual backgrounds. It's just, oh man, we'll see what happens there. What an interesting chapter. It would be nice to have more of an insight into what year this was going on, or the time frame, and the age of his kids, whether or not they were alive or not at this point in time, or was Abraham still around when he was doing this. It's hard to say when exactly this happened. I mean, presumably you would think that the chapter occurs after the previous one, but I mean, a lot of things can kind of be in parallel, or whatever. It's how they were written down more so than when they actually happened, right? So there is some level of variance when it comes to the perception of the fabric of time. Not that it's necessarily significant in this particular instance. It's just, I like to know those things for as far as getting my mental picture and my mental framing of exactly what is going on, what years, what time span, how old people are, and just how these relationships go down. Same thing with the Abimelech, right? We saw him in Abraham beforehand, but whether or not this is the same Abimelech, I doubt it. I think year-wise and determining how old Isaac was when he had kids and just how long-lived Abraham was, I think it's probably either his son or his grandson, but I could be completely wrong on that, and would definitely like to know if there's some way of finding out, but I really only want to trust what the Bible says, and we can only go by that. There's just sort of like a little bit of a nuance to it, so I don't know. It's a cool chapter. I think it's pretty good. So we'll see what happens later on.